Speaking of old interviews, not that you're old, but we have some of your former interviews out on our YouTube.
Yes.
And Dr. Allan Hedberg is a psychologist.
Right.
And well-trained one and experienced.
Absolutely.
And so he's going to have a show starting Saturday.
Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Parent?
Parenting. It's not parenting, but it'll be titled Doctor Teach Me to Parent.
Doctor Teach Me to Parent. And so some of the old interviews, I've actually gone and looked at them from time to time. And
we did a little interview on the book itself when the book was published. Mm-hmm. And it's been a good book. It's been selling with a lot of people.
Now, Doctor Teach Me to Parent, do people need to be taught? Who can be a parent? Just anyone?
Well, virtually anybody can kind of can have a child, but not very many people can raise a child. And I think that's kind of my whole point is I'd like parents to obviously be better, in their parenting, and obviously look at the ways in which they can be a better parent for each child in their home, because it takes a different strategy, a different style for each child.
Yeah.
You can't just be a parent and assume that you're a good parent for everybody.
Right.
Because every child has needs and special interests and special abilities and the ways that they think and ways that they relate. You have to kind of adjust to each of your children, and that's why the book is written, and that's what we're going to do on Saturday.
We're going to get started.
We're going to start on that. That's right.
Now, parenting seems to have changed from my generation to my parents and to their parents. There used to be a lot of spankings when my parents were little.
Sure.
And a little bit when they...
And even spankings today are good, by the way.
Really? It's something that I never...
We ought to be able to have them, but obviously we have some restrictions on how people spank because we've had abuse.
Yeah.
But not all spanking is abusive.
Yeah. I don't think I ever spanked any of my kids.
I remember a spanking.
Yeah, but I did get the belt.
Maybe 2-3 times. That's about it.
That's all it took. I did get the belt myself a couple times when I was a little kid. So
haven't we all?
The belt.
That's right.
I don't know if they do the belt anymore.
Not anymore. Well, that's kind of considered more in the abusive range, and you don't have to do that. I mean, in a sense, if you parent properly, you don't have to spank.
Right.
And so if you're spanking a lot, that means you're not parenting well. I mean, that's kind of how you have to look at that. But even though spanking at times might be helpful, it's better to identify what children do that's appropriate, that's good and desirable, and praise it and reward it in some way, and keep rewarding and build that behavior, the good behavior. And then if it's inappropriate, you just make a contract with a kid and say, you don't behave like this. This is not acceptable. It's not tolerable. And we don't behave like that. So you move out the inappropriate behavior, but you strengthen the appropriate behavior. That's what you need to do.
Build the appropriate. And that's all there is to parenting then.
Well, it's a very simple answer. You take that idea.
Yeah.
Yes, and you multiply that into different kinds of behaviors, different kinds of children, different ways you reward, different ways that you commend children. Everybody has their special ways of wanting to be commended. Some children like to be patted on the back, some like to be hugged, and some like to be just snuggled with, some like to be praised and approved publicly, privately. I mean, all these different, you got to know your child.
Now, parenting is the most important thing you'll ever do.
Probably,
it's the thing that we have the least training for.
Well, it would be good if every parent was trained to be a parent before they become a parent.
Yeah.
That's not the case. We don't have those kind of requirements. You can drive a car and you have to have a little training, but to have a child, you don't have to have training. It's kind of a oxymoron if you think of it that way. But it's true. Here's an opportunity on Saturday to begin a series with me in terms of how do you take a child and now raise that child to be an effective, positive child that's doing well in school, that has work-related skills so that when they graduate they can work in the employment marketplace of the day, that they can relate to each other, they can relate to friends, they can relate to a spouse and eventually marry themselves. That's what this is all about. You parent a child for the future.
Right.
You don't parent a child just for today and tomorrow. But you got to have that idea in mind that you're parenting this child for that child's future.
So when it comes to schoolwork and all these things, it's not about getting the work done for the teacher. It's getting them ready for life.
It's life skills, and if you've done your job, that child will tend to do well, in school. I mean, there are a lot of things that kind of interfere and make the child get off track. But if you've done your job, you have to be able to say as a parent, I did what I could do. I did the best I could do. And to some degree, you have to leave this in God's hands, and you have to leave this in the hands of the child to kind of move forward themselves.
Now, let me ask you a little bit of a complicated question. And I went to Clovis schools. when I did go there, you had to have your hair short.
That's right.
You had to dress a certain way.
That's
I think
right.
most of the time we couldn't even wear jeans.
Yes.
When we were really little, the girls all had to wear dresses.
Yes.
And we rebelled against it all through the, through my entire school time.
But you had to do it.
Nowadays, the kids don't have anything to rebel against. There's no ceiling on the behavior or the dress or the haircuts.
Well, we have kind of reduced the level of expectation on children and the authoritarianism. We've reduced that a lot, and maybe not to the benefit of the child. Maybe it's to our benefit. We can feel better that we don't put these restrictions on children. But the research shows this, that the children that are required to live a certain kind of lifestyle and dress in a certain way do, in fact, do better in school.
Yeah.
They do.
Right.
And the kids that are just allowed to dress any way they want and behave any way they want do not do well academically, nor socially.
Right.
So there's a lot to be said for the old way of doing things. Now, maybe we wouldn't go to that extreme today, and maybe it wouldn't be that much, but certainly when you have put the expectation forth as to what dress code is, what behavior code is, what social relationships are to be, you then produce a better student academically and socially.
Well, the school down the road, they had a smoking section where the kids could smoke.
Yeah.
And so my thought always, well, what are they going to rebel against? They're going to smoke something different, take the next step.
They'll take it the next step.
Well, kids always
do
try
that.
to take the
And then
next
you're going to
step.
have a marijuana section.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have another kind of drug section. I mean, do you really want that? I mean, is that what education is about?
Right.
When we know that in case of marijuana, how much it produces brain damage, why would a school want to encourage that?
Right.
And we know that in cigarette smoking, it produces a cancer behavior and a result. And so why would a school want to encourage that and produce that kind of thing?
Right.
So schools have to get their act together in this area in terms of doing the things in school that are healthy and are positive, not which is destructive.
Now, parent, I don't know if there's a definition of a good parent or a bad parent, but some parents could be pretty strict and have the rules and that they want their kids to follow and the expectations. Then they get to school and there's no rules.
Yeah. Well, the point is that the parent can set the rules, not just for the home, but for wherever the child is. Those rules apply, whether the child's at school or on the playground or is with friends at parties or wherever it might be. You set rules for your child, not for the home only, but for the child's behavior wherever they are. That's number one. Number two is the rules have to be fair, and number three is the rules have to be followed up and honored.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to monitor your child to see if they're keeping the rules, and if they are, you praise, you approve, and you affirm. If they're not, you correct.
Right.
And you renegotiate, and then you start over again. So rules have to be seen as something that's very important to children's behavior because it gives them structure. It gives them a sense of security and safety.
Yeah.
And when you give that to a child, you've given a great gift, actually. And you want to make sure that that applies in whatever situation they are. Because if you're going to have rules for home, then how much time do the kids spend at home?
Right.
It's kind of like anywhere else, and they can do anything they want. You don't want that.
Right. Okay. Now, teach me to parent. Where will you start?
Well, we're going to start on Saturday at 10 o'clock, and we're going to take a look at the question of, am I an effective parent? Am I a good parent? A lot of parents kind of base how they raise their children on the basis of how they were raised. That's the best example we have is how we were raised as a child. Well, that might be good. It might not be so good. So, I mean, that's kind of where parents usually start. So I'd like to look at some of the strategies and some of the qualities that separates a good parent, an effective parent, from one that's less effective. And then look at some of the qualities and the characteristics of really what a parent can use as like a goal or as a model or as an example of how they can then proceed in their parenting. So they really do an effective job with their kids in home.
I think about my parenting a lot, how I parented my kids and how it was as my wife and I were there and the kids are there and, we co-parented and raised our kids together. But we see a lot less of that two-parent home.
Well, it's an interesting research study was done recently. You know how many fathers a child has in America? 2.8.
Wow.
Every child, and the average
Yeah.
is 2.8, which means dad was there for a while, boyfriend was there for a while, stepfather was there for a while, boyfriend, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
France and some of the other countries of the world is 4.
Wow.
4 fathers per child during the child rearing years. In America, it's something like 2.8. I mean, that says that a child has mixed messages, because everybody that comes has a different way of parenting, and some are very lax and some are very strict, and so this child has all these mixed messages of all these different fathers in their life. So it's not just parenting, it's kind of fathers have their influence, mother have their influence.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy thing today to be a child, to be subject to all the changes that take place in our culture, and then within their home. Just the number of parents they've had.
Now, my kids, who turned out pretty darn good, I think, I set them on their course that they're going to college.
Oh, sure.
And that they're going away to college.
That's right. Absolutely.
And they went away, and I see a lot of kids who stay at home. They're adults by then.
That's
and there's
right.
another adult in the house.
That's right.
The two adults have a different idea how things should go.
Yeah, that's right. And if a child stays in the home, and this insurance thing we have now, you can be under your parents' insurance until 26. That encourages children to stay at home. And parents think of the idea that after 20 or 21 or 22, a child moves out.
Right.
So we have this kind of conflict with our government encouraging kids to stay at home and under the guise of their parents, but the parents don't want their child at home that long, and kids really don't want it either.
Yeah.
But our economics kind of encourage that kind of behavior. But you said something very important. You don't ask a child if they're going to go to college. You don't ask that question. You which college you're going to go to. I mean, it's an assumption that a child is going to go to college, and you want to know where, and so you can plan accordingly, and you can help the child think it through and get that idea in their mind that it is college they are going to go to. It's just a question of where.
Just where. And I always make the pitch. We applied to 10, 15 colleges.
Absolutely.
And then we took the best financial package.
Or the one that meets the child's interests and needs, and academic challenges, the best. And there's a lot of good schools out there.
And ours with Pepperdine cost us almost nothing.
Excellent
it's
choice.
$60,000 a year. Yeah. But you work it through. You get through it.
Yeah, it's an investment that you have to make as a parent.
But it just didn't cost us that much because there's the grants, the scholarships, you get the state grants. So I always encourage parents, just apply.
Oh, you got to apply, but you also have to save from the get-go.
Yeah.
When you have a young child, you don't necessarily think of college, but you need to. You should. Yeah. Because if you're going to get the idea that that kid's going to go to school, just a question of where, then you start put your savings account forward and making sure that you have some money by the time that kid comes into age 18 and ready to go off to school. You don't have maybe all the money, but you got some money to contribute, to that, plus all the grants and, gifts that children
get. The doctor is teaching me to parent. Why were you 25 years ago, Dr. Hedberg? I could have really used some help.
Well, we all can. I mean, we learn from each other. I mean, this is the thing about parents getting together and talking and sharing and having friendships that are age appropriate and age relevant, because you kind of learn from each other. This is not an easy task to parent. It's not something that just comes naturally. You can make very great mistakes very easily. Very
easy. Okay, it's Dr. Allan Hedberg. He's going to have a new show right here on Central Valley Talk every Saturday at 10 a.m. We're going to film it one week and show it again the next week, so you'll be able to, if you miss an episode, you'll be able to see it the next week. Dr. Allan Hedberg, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on CentralValleyTalk.com. The show's called Doctor Teach Me to Parent. We'll be back with more Mike and Athena after this.